you guys should pass a new map. So that time they were redrawing a court-drawn map. To just go ahead and say, yeah, Republicans, you got to draw the map a couple years ago, but now you should draw a more aggressive map. That push coming from the White House, that really is dialing up the aggressiveness in the gerrymandering game.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by senior political columnist Tim Carney. Tim, you've written, everybody's talking about redistricting right now and the whole concept of gerrymandering. You've written a piece that sort of looks at the history of gerrymandering. This is really not a new thing, is it?
No, and it's kind of funny following some of this on the news media where people say, well, this started with California's gerrymandering, 4 or 5 years ago. No, it didn't. Or then you get this started because Republicans won the Tea Party wave in 2010, and so then they gerrymandered. And of course It didn't. Elbridge Gerry was a Massachusetts lawmaker. They've been gerrymandering for a long time. Gerrymandering has gotten more aggressive as sort of the technology, the science, the maps have gotten more granular. But it's been going on forever. And if you look at the current House, Republicans won 51.4% of the popular vote for the House, whatever that means, this last election, and they have 50.1% of the congressional seats. So there's no net gain for Republicans, at least by that measure of gerrymandering.
So we're talking about gerrymandering so much because obviously Republican-led states are attempting to, for lack of a better term, pad their congressional majorities, their House majority, or at least make the universe of defensible seats for them larger ahead of next year's midterms, where it's such a tiny majority.
What's basically unprecedented about what Texas is doing in Indiana, they might, in 2025, pass a new map to take effect for the 2026 election. This has almost never happened where you do a mid-decade redistricting. Typically, every decade you get a new census, then you get your apportionment, and then with that map, you have to draw a congressional map that's, down to basically the voter. Each district not the voter, the resident. Each district has to be equal. Texas did a mid-decade redistricting 22 years ago. That was slightly different, though. And you might remember, Texas, the Democrats now have fled the state of Texas, like for the very gerrymandered state of Illinois. 20-something years ago, they went to Ardmore, Oklahoma, as one of their 2 walkouts to try to stop the mid-decade redistricting. The difference is, that time there was no map in effect that had been passed by the legislature. Because Democrats still had, I think it was the state Senate, before the census, and so the map they were working with was drawn by a judge. So Tom DeLay told the Republicans in Texas when they took over in 2002, you guys should pass a new map. So that time they were redrawing a court-drawn map. To just go ahead and say, yeah, Republicans, you got to draw the map a couple years ago, but now you should draw a more aggressive map. That push coming from the White House, that really is dialing up the aggressiveness in the gerrymandering game.
So is there a risk politically that this could be overreach?
Well, yeah. So a lot of times state parties do overreach by trying to gain. So Republicans have a pretty big advantage in Texas. I think it's 25-12 and they're or 25-13, and they want to add more and make it 30-8. Well, look at Georgia. The Democrats there in the 2000 census tried to take all of the new seats they got through apportionment, and they ended up losing 2 of those. 2 of the seats they had drawn for themselves. Pennsylvania Republicans, similar sort of thing, where if you try to stretch your state majority into a massive thing, you're giving yourself smaller margins in a lot of those seats, and it might backfire. And the other potential backfire is if Texas and Indiana really do drive some Democratic states to gerrymander, then you lose some seats there. And also just the whole business of these super partisan gerrymanderings has a cost of making it so that some of your people aren't represented. You have somebody with a district that wraps in a spiral around the state, and there's somebody who's, their congressman has never been to their district. They don't even know what this neighborhood is because it's so different geographically and sort of demographically from the rest of the district.
So you've lived in Maryland for an extended period of time, and that's a state that has been famous for some of its gerrymandering from the Democratic perspective.
Yes. So Maryland used to have 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats, believe it or not. And so then after the 2000 census, the Democrats redrew it to basically make it so there was 1 rural district in Western Maryland, sort of the West Virginia part of the state, and 1 rural district on the Eastern Shore, on the other side of the Chesapeake Bay. That's the farm part of the state. And that involved knocking off Connie Morella, who was, the most famous liberal Republican.
Yes.
So they took her Montgomery County, wealthy suburban district, and they roped in some of Prince George's County. So it was a more black district, a poorer district, and also people who had never voted for a Republican in their life.
Right.
But then the next decade, they got even more aggressive, and they knocked out the Western Maryland district by drawing all the districts would cut down through Montgomery County, which was by now rich Democrats.
Right.
This time around, there's another gerrymander. It's not as blatant, but we did items here at the Examiner that showed these districts where you'd have these tiny little bands that run through, federal property to connect this rural part to this wealthy liberal suburban part.
Yeah, I mean, just all of these things are famous for just how these districts can look on a map where they're just not contiguous at all.
And the ugliness of the district sometimes is more telling of a gerrymander than the proportions. Massachusetts, for instance, this is your home state.
Sure.
It's had 9-0 and 10-0 Democrats, despite having 30-40% Republican voters.
Sure.
Part of it is because the Republicans are evenly distributed throughout it would be really hard
to draw a
Republican district
yeah.
in. While Maryland, a fair map would basically have 2 or 3 Republican seats and 4 or 5 Democratic seats, and then maybe 1 toss-up in there. So when you look at the districts and they look like, not a Rothko painting, because those are straight, but like a Jackson Pollock painting, then what they're doing here is they are basically just trying to rope all the Republicans into 1 district, or 0, and then give the Democrats like 60% majorities in the rest.
Thank you, Tim. You can read Tim and the rest of our commentary team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.